left. And then we don't see the universe, what it's going to wind up being millions of years from now. That's beyond our view on the screen on the right. So, a serious place where, like, boats in the middle of the ocean in fog. We can see the other boat, at least a hazy outline. But we don't know where land is. We don't know where we've come from. We don't know if there's danger ahead. We just kind of are here in this existential fog in the middle of nowhere. And most people kind of play with these questions a little bit, you know, soon give up. And what happens then is we discover, well, we can't understand any answers to the big question, but we do know that right there is sense gratification, and that's good. So I'm going to go for that. So we give up answering the big questions, and we're happy with just the answer to various sense gratification. Oh, that tastes good. You know, I need to get some more of that. Where did you buy it? What is it to make? You know, who made it? What store did you buy it in? How much did it cost? That's a nice thing to hear. You know, you play it, let me hear it. That's a nice thing to see. Are there more of those? What time will the showing start? You know, what's the cost in that theater? You know, this and that, and the other. So we busy ourselves about immediate sense gratification, which is easy to get. It's tangible. We can do it, and after a while, we just forget that maybe there's anything else. So any wonder where we don't connect anything deeper? You know, having just a sort of superficial connection to things, and we never think about where we're going. So Brahma is in anxiety, but he understands there must be a supreme, and he meets the supreme, and the supreme is giving him information and assuaging his difficult mentality, his a fear of making some mistake. And he also, Brahma, is intelligent enough to know that in the process of creating and of being apparently the big cheese, you know, the big center of everything, one can get a slow hit. And this shows big intelligence. Most people don't know this, you know, that if you do wind up being the center of something or the master of ceremonies in some way, the chances of getting a swell head are quite good, quite good. So Ramana, and he gets the assurance, as we'll see later on in this chapter by the Supreme Lord, that his difficulty in creating will be managed, and that he will not become involved or entangled in this egoistic identification as the head honcho. So this is the nature of his situation. And, you know, I'm thinking that whenever I feel overwhelmed, this would be a good chapter to return to. Brahma felt this way, and certainly I can feel this way. And maybe this is a good chapter to reread and understand that the Supreme Lord says, well, no, everything's okay. Just continue and things will work out. You know, and Brahma felt overwhelmed, and it's not going to be astounding that you feel overwhelmed sometimes. And what's interesting is in this little section, we see interwoven what in theology or Christian circles would be called doxology, praxology, and theology. So these are three big words. You know. Theology, we all know, it's the philosophy behind the spiritual path. Where are we? What are we doing? How are we doing it? Who is the supreme? What's existing? What's important? You know, all that kind of thing. Theology, the theoreticals. Then we have something called doxology, which is praise. So often we see these big sections of prayers. So Brahma, he first off starts the first 5 verses talking about the amazing qualities of Lord Buddha's feet. Then from 6 to 10, he discusses those people who don't get the mercy of the Lord's mercy. And from 11 to 13, he talks about the Lord's reciprocation. And then from 14 to 19, you know, he starts a basis. And so this is the section I'm talking about. You know, he is doing his doxology. He's praising the Supreme Lord. So these prayers, it's not like the Supreme Lord doesn't know these things. You know, he's not telling Krishna, oh, you are the source of all material and spiritual worlds. He's not telling Krishna that, oh, you are seated in the hearts of everyone. You are personally expanded as your original form, and yet you are also the all-pervading essence. And those who have no devotion to you can hardly understand. And the Supreme Lord knows all this. But he is doing it as a kind of doxology, or a prayer of praise, and this helps Brahma. And it's euphonious, it's nice to hear, it's pleasant, and it purifies all those that hear. You know, Yasmaret Pundarikapsham Savaya Candrashekar. You know, so we are told, you know, Om Apavitro Pavitro Va Sarvastam Katokiva Yasmaret Pundarikapsham Savaya Candrashekar. You know, that in any circumstance one can be purified or unpurified, apavitro, pavitro, sarvastam, or in any condition. Yah, one who smaret, remembers, pundarikaksham, the lotus-eyed Lord, sahi, bhaya, yantarashekar, he's cleansed inside and outside. So through doxology, through praise, we cleanse ourselves. Anyone in the proximity is also cleansed. And then we have praxeology, which is the whole system of understanding what kind of practice we should be engaged in. And by knowing what we should be doing with our lives, with our bodies, and this is also a part of the whole system. And if you not just study this chapter 9 in the third canto, but basically it's just throughout all the time. We'll see this interweaving of doxology, theology, and praxeology. So to come to a deeper level, we can't just have, you know, glorification prayers and theology. We also have to do something. You know, we have to do some practical activity. And so this then gives us the purification to, like Brahma, be able to see this. So what's interesting too is that we get in contact with the Supreme, who's hidden from our sight. No soul has come to tell us what exists beyond our sight. So only through following a process of authority, we become able to not see through our eyes, but to hear through the ear where we are coming from and what the Supreme Lord actually is and how to achieve it. That's interesting. Now, I thought, since tomorrow is Srivat's top words here in this day, I'm hoping I'm not stepping on somebody's toe. Planning a lecture tomorrow. I'm not sure about I don't know who's on tomorrow. But it's very interesting. We often don't hear much about Srivat's top word. And I thought that might be a good time to read that. And it certainly fits in with the sort of theme of this part of Srimad Bhagavatam. You know, it's interesting also to learn and read about the Panchatattva, Krishna Bhakti, Shakti. So we learn that there are 5, count them, 5 different expansions of the Supreme. And so we have the first expansion, which is the Panchatattva. Okay, so my brain logged out there. There's one back. Panchatattva. So there are 5 truths Krishna about Krishna, who's actually we're talking about Chaitanya. Panchatattva Krishna, Bhakta Rupa. So Lord Chaitanya is Bhakta Rupa, the form of the devotee. So he is the original. He's Vishnu Tattva. He's directly Krishna. Bhakta Rupa, Swarupa. Swarupa is his first expansion. That's Nityananda, who is the brother of Balaram. Bhakta Rupa has become Bhaktavatar. The avatar is Advaitacharya, who is Sadashiva and also Mahavishnu in one, both same time. Bhakta Rupa has become Bhaktavatar. Bhaktakhya, who is known as Adobe, which is Gadadhara, and Bhakti Shaktika, which is Srivas, who is a Shakti. He's also understood to be the essence of Narada Muni, or the Shakti, or the move of Narada Muni. So this is Srivas. Now it's interesting also that we have 3 that are Vishnu Tattva, or Chaitanya, Nityananda, and Advaitacharya. We have one that's Shakti Tattva, which is Gadadhara, who is Radharani, an expansion of Radharani, and then we have one who's Jiva Tattva, which is Srivas Tattva. So Srivas Tattva was one of 4 or 5 brothers, and Jaladhara Pandit, and they come from Sri Hata. And there is a story actually about Srivas Thakur in Kavi Karnapura's or Chaitanya Chandradaya Nanda. There is a story about him. It's a drama. And the story goes that Srivas was very, Srivas is explaining the story about himself. It's autobiographical. So he's explaining that I was very haughty, very self-important, materialistic person. To the age of 16, I could not hear any good advice from anyone. I did not take it seriously. I was only interested in enjoying myself. And I was very self-important. And I ignored all the advice of my elders. I never read scripture. I did not have any interest in deities, deity worship, all these things. But one night I had a dream. And in a dream, a very effulgent personality came to me in the dream and said, Srivas, you haughty, self-important, egotist, what will happen when you die? You do not know that you only have 1 year of life left. And so what will your sense of gratification, what will your self-importance do for you? How will you be saved? And so Srivas woke up from the dream and he said, yes, I must change my mind. And he thought that I will become understanding, just like Brahma, just like us who talk about this. He realizes that I'm in the middle of this mysterious situation of life. I don't know where I come from. I don't know what this means. But I've heard from the Vedas and from also authorities all around that this can be found out if one simply studies the Vedas and associates advanced devotees. So he begins attending a Sangha Devananda Pandit one day. He's on a balcony, and he's listening to Devananda Pandit And suddenly he feels very woozy, he feels very balance is lost. He thinks, oh, this is my time now. I will now leave my body. And he falls off the balcony. And he's thinking, now I surely must be finished. But actually, he doesn't die. Somehow or another, he's saved. And then he realizes that actually, somehow or another, it's by the mercy, devotees of the Lord, that I have been delivered and that I'm still alive. So therefore, let me take very seriously this process of Krishna consciousness. So this is kind of described in the, Chaitanya Chandra Nata Kavikarnapura. And Kavikarnapura is also a devotee who is credited with really explaining and expanding this whole process of understanding the Lord in 5 features as the Panchatattva. Actually, it was described originally in detail by Swami Kavikarnapura, made it very popular. He began to describe it. So, Srivas Thakur, of course, he's known probably for one thing more than anything else, and that is that it was his home, which was not very far from the place where Lord Chaitanya took his birth. His home was where the devotees came and used to perform kirtan in the middle of the night. Now, sometimes it's good to kind of back up and see how this whole thing unfolded. We have, probably in the Panchatattva, the oldest is Vaitacharya, who was born in 1410. So he was almost 76 when Lord Chaitanya was born. Also, Srivas was much older. So Nityananda was about 12 years older than Lord Chaitanya. However, Gadadhar is almost about the same age as Lord Chaitanya. So before Lord Chaitanya came, he sent his, various servants and those who would prepare the way for him. So Srivas was one of those, and Advaitacharya was one of those. So Srivas, his wife was named Malini, and Malini was later to become friends with Sachimata. And they met at Advaitacharya's place, where Advaitacharya would also explain things about the process of Krishna consciousness. So Malini became good friends with Sachimata. And later on, when Lord Chaitanya was actually born, then Malini came and gave gifts. We hear about this in Chaitanya Charitamrita by Krishnadas Kaviraj. We hear about various gifts that were presented by, Malini Devi to the young Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And what's also interesting, that the brothers that Srivas had, he had 3 or 4 other brothers: Sripati, Sriram, Sripati, Srinidhi, and some say Nalda. So there were other brothers. They all followed Srivas when he became converted, and so therefore they also associated with devotees. And just as we see in this dramatic depiction by Kavikarnapura, that Lord Chaitanya, in his early days, was a very kind of self-important wrangling scholar. He did not actually talk about devotional service. He was very, sort of aggressive, and people found it hard to take. And he used to torture Srivas with questions. Srivas would try to get away from him sometimes, because he would always ask these kind of pointless, vague, questions that had no relationship to devotional service. And this is interesting how, sometimes people wonder, why did Lord Chaitanya spend all these years just as a mundane philosophical wrangler? And there was a time before kirtan was done in public. We'll see that before kirtan was done in public, it was done in secret. And where was it done in secret? In Srivasa's house. That's where it was done in secret. That's called Kol Bangadanga. Srivasa, his place where he stayed. And there his brothers were there, and there, of course, Nityananda would come, Chaitanya would come, so many others would come. But getting back to the episode I was just recounting, Srivas saw one time Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This was after Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had started his, teaching. And so he was giving lectures about Vedic knowledge, and he had a whole group of students around him. And he had just come from the river. His head was wet. He was wearing gorgeous clothes. He was the flower of youth. He was very attractive, very kind of like light blue and gold and all these things all in one. And so Srivas was so inspired and came up and said, which is reminiscent of his own history. So what do you hope to accomplish by all this mundane wrangling? How will this have anything to do with please Krishna? Why don't you give this all up and become a Krishna Bhakta? So this is Srivas talking to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, actually suddenly becomes changed. And in terms of, my dear Srivas, what you say is certainly true. And you will see one day, I will take up the process of Krishna consciousness, and I will spread it everywhere. And then he laughed and he went on like nothing again. And so Lord Chaitanya apparently then met his class that he was instructing, and they went on and they engaged in their regular daily activities, laughing and speaking in very superficial way. However, very soon after that, then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went after the death of his father, Jagannath Mishra. He went to die there. He connected with Ishvara before he became initiated, and then Lord Chaitanya completely changed. From that point on, there was no more wrangling scholar. Now he was actually the avatar of holy. And he would bring Krishna consciousness to everyone. So this was the beginning of the spreading of the Yuga Dharma from the age of Kali Yuga, the chanting. But as we said, this chanting did not occur publicly in the beginning. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda and Vaitacharya and many others, they would meet in secret at Srivasa's home. And in the middle of the night, they would chant and dance. And all kinds of bizarre, mystical things would happen at this evening, get together where they would chant. And sometimes Nityananda and Chaitanya would jump very high, and when their feet hit the ground, it would appear that an earthquake was happening, or that maybe the earth had collided with another planet, or their teeth might fall out and break their bones. Sometimes they would appear to float in the air. They would attempt to grab each other's feet, and although they were very quick and very skillful, neither Chaitanya nor Nityananda would ever actually be able to touch the other's foot. They would always escape somehow or other. And no one was allowed in to these midnight sessions in Srivas Sangha. Of course, one day, we have the story that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was dancing. And as he's dancing, he thinks, why today are we not feeling ecstasy? He's thinking, maybe there's some intruder here And so everybody's curious. And then it comes to be found out that Malini's mother is hidden in the back there. And so when she's removed, then the dancing can be continued. So how would this spreading of the holy name ever happen? It's always in secret. Of course, also in the Srivas Sangam, there were many other amazing events that happened there, like Lord Nityananda, when he first came, he offered puja to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu showed his Mahaprakash, his universal form in that place where Srivas Thakur stayed. In that same location, Lord Chaitanya exhibited for the first time, his Sadhuja form to Nityananda, whose form with 6 arms. And also on the same tone or the same theme as the episode with Malini's mother or mother-in-law, which was one of those two. There was another episode where a young brahmachari heard about this dancing in the middle of the night. And he came to Srivas and he asked, my dear Srivas, can you somehow make it possible that I see these amazing things I've heard about Nityananda, Vaita, and so many others that come there in the middle of the night. I want to please see this. And Srivas said, well, I think that we better conceal. So he's concealed behind a screen, and again, Lord Chaitanya dancing, but after such a short time, Lord Chaitanya stops dancing. He says, why is it that ecstasy does not come to embrace us tonight? I think there must be somebody here. And he says, I have told you that I do not want outsiders here, and I will now destroy you in the entire universe. So Lord Chaitanya says, this, amazing statement, and everybody's terrified. And so the young boy, he thinks, well, maybe now I'm going to be killed, or maybe I will be punished. But what I saw was worth it. This is if I now have to leave my body as a result, seeing what Lord Chaitanya mentioned, how they were dancing, how their ecstasy was, how amazing they were chanting, tears were coming from their eyes, how they would float, how they would perform these pastimes, and it's worth it. And so Lord Chaitanya could understand the mood of this young boy. And Srivas was saying, well, this young boy, he only drinks milk, he's very austere. And Lord Chaitanya enraged. So, you think you can achieve the Supreme Lord by drinking milk? You can't achieve the Supreme Lord just by drinking milk. And then he tells the boy, do not think that you will achieve the Supreme only by your austerity. Rather, it's through devotion to me one can achieve the Supreme. And then he places his feet on the head of this young brahmachari, and the young brahmachari also becomes one of those who can come and participate in the nocturnal pastimes of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. On another occasion, there was someone named Gopal Chapala, and Gopal Chapala was envious of the amazing character of Shiva. So Gopal Chapala decided to defame Shiva, and he set up a mandala for worshiping Durga Devi outside of Srivas Thakur's home. So people would think that actually Srivas was worshiping Durga Devi. And at that place, at that time, higher class people were Vaishnavas, lower class people were Shakti worshippers. So in this way, he hoped that people would assume that Srivas Thakur was actually worshiping Durga Devi. So he set all this up. And in the morning, when Srivas came out, he saw this on top of Durga, which set up there in front of his house. And he told everybody, just see, I'm calling myself a great Vaishnava, but actually I worship Durga Devi. Please understand my real mentality. Of course, nobody believed it, but Chapa was stricken in his leprosy, and he became very, very ill. He had to live outside of the community because when somebody becomes a leper, they can't. It's infectious disease, so they can't be with everybody else. They have to be quarantined. He was under a tree, suffering miserably, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu one time was passing by Gopal Chapa, and Gopal Chapa hailed him and reached out and please Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, save me somehow from this disease. You know, your serenity, devotee. And Lord Chaitanya said, no, you have offended Srivas Thakur, and for having made this offense, you will suffer like this for millions of years. So Lord Chaitanya, instead of being merciful to Gopal Chapa, he redoubled the curse. And so Gopal Chapa had to suffer more time. Later, of course, when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came back from Puri after taking sannyasi, again meets Gopal Chapa. And this time, Lord Chaitanya tells him, well, if you get forgiveness from Srivas Thakur, then I think you can be delivered. And of course, Gopal Chapa, although he was, you know, to some extent, very self-important and very much, you know, egotistic. He had the simple faith, and he did that, and therefore he also became cured, and he also became a follower of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So the final thing that I would like to say is during one of these episodes, when they were dancing in the middle of the night, chanting Srivas Thakur's home, one of Srivas Thakur's children died. He had, I think, 5 boys. I don't know if they had girls too, but he had 5 boys, and one of them suddenly left his body in the middle of the night during one kirtan. And of course, Malini and the other lady was grieving over the death of the child, crying. This could not be heard in the place where they were performing kirtan, so it was no one knew. But Srivas went back there, and when he found out what was going on, he gave very important instructions to the ladies. He said, well, why are you all crying? And I wish I could die like this at hearing Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's kirtan. We all know that we will all die at some time. So this boy, our son, has left his body, and though maybe we can think that he was young, still, this was a perfect way to leave his body. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was dancing. So how could there be anything inauspicious? This is the definition of the most auspicious thing. So please give up your crying, because if you cry and disturb Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's dancing, then I will feel my life is over. And so the way that Srivas preached, he convinced them that actually there was nothing to be sorry for. And Lord Chaitanya continued the kirtan for 9 hours. And so this happened about an hour and a half into his kirtan. You know, for 9 hours his kirtan went. And when the kirtan finally broke, I guess, in the morning, then Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, why do they feel some sadness in this Sangha tonight? And somebody explained to him how Srivas's son had left the world, and Lord Chaitanya said, how is it that no one told me this? I can't believe it. Srivas, you didn't tell me your son had departed. And Srivas said, my dear, we didn't want to disturb your chanting. And how can there be anything wrong with someone departing while you are doing kirtan. So Lord Chaitanya went to where the boy's body was, and he called out to the young boy. He said, "My dear son, why have you left Srivasa's family in such a way? What possessed you to do this?" And the boy began to speak, came back into the body, and he began to speak to the family. And the boy said, "My dear Chaitanya, you know everything of the Supreme Court, and I have some small desire, but your desire is what carries everything. So for some reason, you gave me the amazing benediction to be able to take birth in this illustrious family, Srivas Thakur and Mama Meet. I could not have asked for such a benediction, but somehow or other you allowed it to happen. And now that you want me to move to another family or another lifetime, I have no problem with that. But please, wherever I give birth, let me always remember the Lord's feet. Let me always take shelter of whatever devotees I come across." So this little boy is giving this speech. And then when he finishes speaking, then he closes his eyes again. The spirit leaves again, and then Lord Chaitanya performs. He brings everybody together and they perform the last rites, body, child, and everyone feels very satisfied. Experienced all this. So this is Srivas Thakur, where he was intimate associate with Lord Chaitanya. One of the Panchatattva, the Shakti of Narada and so many others. So we have a little bit of time left. I'll see if there are any questions. But anyway, anybody have any questions about Mike?
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. I wanted to ask two things. One is you mentioned the place of Srivas Thakur is known as something called
Srivasana.
Yeah, you mentioned the call.
Oh, Kol Bangadama.
What was the meaning?
Well, that's Kol is of course a redundant. And Bangadama is where it was broken. That's another story. Muslim minister, he demanded that the devotees stop chanting. Soldiers come, and then he broke a redundant in Srivasa's home, and told them that if they chanted anymore, that there would be serious repercussions. So he made this proclamation. Of course, we know that later on, he turns around because he's visited by Sri. Sri tells him that if you break another redundant like this, that I will do the same with you. And then, of course, I forgot what was the name of the.
Kazi.
Was that
Kazi's the one.
Kazi?
Chand.
Chand Kazi.
Kazi.
Right. So he made this proclamation after he was threatened by Sri. He said, from this point on, that devotees can chant anywhere out in the street or whatever they want. None of my men, nor any of my descendants will ever interfere chanting the holy name again. So this was another story, and that's what earned it the reputation called Bangadama, the place where the redundant was broken. I believe that's.
Thank you, Haraj. And also, I wanted to ask, during the class, we were mentioning that somehow we perceive both. We perceive the results from our long-term activities. We have a vision. We can kind of see a little bit in the future, but also we see or we desire the result from our immediate activities, generally sense gratification. So how it is that, what is the reason that generally we choose the second one?
Yeah, right. Well, one of them is, as Prabhupada puts it many times, we are in the conditional stage of life. So we're conditioned. It's not natural. You know, in Christian theology, they have this idea that the soul is fundamentally flawed, which is not correct. The soul is fundamentally flawed.
Flawed.
Yeah, that is called original sin. And just, you know, being born, we're already in sin condition. But the idea is that we make our sin. The soul is originally pure, but the soul is habituated to material sense gratification, life after life, gradually digging itself deeper into a more conditioned consciousness, you know, through our senses and our sense desires. We create karma. Through that karma, we become more attached. We become more involved in more grievous and ugly forms of sense gratification, which create even deeper karma. And so in this way, we are like, you know, just like the paradigm, drug addiction works exactly the same way as drug addiction is just you know, one specific type of this kind of thing. So as a person engages in material sense gratification during the work, one becomes also unable to pass up sense gratification. So we become more and more addicted. This becomes a pattern. This becomes what's etched into our consciousness as our samskara. So life after life, we build up these patterns of material desire, we build up these sins, and we build up this karma. So as a result, we are naturally attracted to sense gratification and naturally uninterested in understanding the Supreme Lord up until the time we get some mercy. And then, you know, at that point, we have to catch fire, take off on our own motor, and start engaging in devotional activities, the bhakti yoga, and then we can cleanse, and eventually our pure original state of being naturally attracted to the Supreme Lord and unattracted to the material world becomes manifest. And that, you know, that's where we reach the stage, you know, experiencing a higher taste. So, is that the question? So, any other quick questions?
Maharaj, what you mentioned about this, that there were three things you mentioned, doxology,
Praxeology.
yeah. So they remind me about Sambandha Vidya and Prayojana in a sense. So,
Yeah, something like that. It's a little bit different. You know, Sambandha Prayojana, Abhideya, Sambandha and Abhideya and Prayojana are the three things that we think of. But these are three things that are types of knowledge. So Sambandha is understanding our position. And then Abhideya is understanding what to do about our position. And Prayojana is what happens when we do it. So as I put it, you know, the first one is understanding the fix we're in. Second one is understanding how to fix the fix we're in. And the third one is what happens when we fix the fix. You know, so that's Sambandha, Abhideya, and Prayojana. And this is a little different. This is talking about three different ways that devotees express themselves for the Supreme, you know, through doxology, which is words of praise, praxeology, which is the, you know, it would be like Sambandha or Abhideya, that's kind of like praxeology. But praxeology also has a broader definition in English as being motivations, not just motivations for the Supreme, but any motivation, why a person does what they do, you know. And then theology is, of course, the theoreticals. Who is God? Why do we worship him? and what's going on here, all that kind of stuff. Cool. So, thank you all very much for your attention. All glories, Lord, all glories to Srimad Thakur and Panchatattva. Panchatattva, Ahmakam Krishna, Bhakti, Sarvakam, Bhaktavata, Bhaktakyam, Shanti. Hari Bol.
Candrashekar Swami.
Yeah.